my name's Anthony and I'm from Lighthouse Church in Dumfries, and welcome to In Conversation. Today we're going to continue with our theme of the book of Psalms, and we're going to be discussing Psalm 100. With me today I have a very special guest. Some of you may remember this guy. He came to Lighthouse Church in 2009 and with a team from his church in Chicago, Illinois. So you might recognize him. So I'd like to just say thank you and hello to Joe Tours. Hi, Joe.
Hello. It's great to be speaking with you. It's a pleasure to be on your show, on your podcast.
Thank you. Well, it's very nice to see you again. I told my wife that I was going to be speaking to you, and this is the first time I've ever actually spoke kind of face to face since you were here, and my wife just reminded me not to be weird because I can get a bit weird. She's like, just make sure you don't say anything stupid, but I can't promise anything. So Psalm 100. Do you have any first impressions on this one?
When I was reading it, I wasn't really sure the context at first. Like I understood what they were saying, like, serve the Lord with gladness, come before his presence with singing. And then I started diving into it more in depth, and I kind of read a commentary, forget who it was by, but it was kind of like they were pulling quotes from different, famous Christian people like Charles Spurgeon and things like that. And it kind of was eye-opening to me that it was actually speaking about in the end, when all of the earth is gathered into the Lord's presence. And it's like, basically, it's like kind of like, in my perception, it was like the new earth and everyone coming together as like one family in like singing and praising and entering into the gates. That's
cool. I never thought of it being like at the end. I always thought, when everything's all wrapped up and we're all in heaven, we'll be worshipping. But I've never actually applied thought to, or I never applied this psalm to what that would be like. But I like that thought. I like that. Like when it says we're all his people, we're all the sheep of his flock. Like just being all together. And whenever I think of sheep in a flock, we always think of them being close together, just shoulder to shoulder. I like that thought.
Yeah, it seems like there's going to be like a ton of people. I mean, from the start of time. I mean, in the big scheme of things, few are going to be there, but there are going to be a lot of people there considerably. I mean, think about all of believers throughout all time, all in one place. Like, it's going to be massive.
Yeah, like, I don't know how I'm going to cope. I don't like crowds.
Well, I think all of that's more of like our earthly body now. Like, I think because we'll be in the presence of the Lord, so it's not going to be like, we're not going to have anxiety or like fear or anything like that. We're just going to be, all at peace.
Yeah, total peace. And we're too busy focusing on God to be thinking about anything else. And like, if it's total peace, like say, no anxiety, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, it'll be sweet.
So my first impression was, as I was reading it, I was like, clearly the author, I don't know if it says who the author was, I maybe didn't notice. The author has clearly had a good experience with God, and they want to share that experience with someone else. And it reminded me of when I think it was Jesus that said, when you have a light, you're not going to hide it under a lampstand. You're not going to hide your light. you're going to let the world see it. And this person who wrote this psalm has clearly had a good experience, and they feel incapable of keeping it to themselves, and they just have to share it with everybody else.
Yeah, like it overflows.
Yeah.
Your joyfulness just overflows out of your spirit.
Yeah, but like I chose the Psalms because I always kind of skimmed over them, if I'm honest, because I always thought, you know what, I'm not much of a worshipper. I don't, I love worship and I do it, but it's not my focus. That's the worship leader's job. And so I found it difficult. So I thought, if we choose the Psalms, it'll kind of give me something. That'll give me focus.
Sure.
Do it and grow.
Well, it's cool though too, because like worship is, singing is like a great form of worship, but there's so many other like forms of worship that we perform without even realizing it, because it's not really always spoken about, maybe. Mm-hmm. where we think about, doing this for our neighbor, just being a good neighbor or whatever, could be a form of worship.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I wrote here. On the line, I think it's in verse 4, it says, "Give thanks to him and praise his name," but in most other translations it says, "Bless his name." Whenever it uses the word bless throughout the rest of the Bible, it sometimes means that another meaning of that is to serve. So to serve his name. So like what you're saying, this whole psalm is about worship, but not necessarily about singing.
Right.
And you can bless or serve God not just with your singing voice, but with your actions as well, by being a good neighbor, or who knows, absolutely everything.
Right. And that kind of goes back to like, not that we're saved by works, but it's kind of like one of those evidences that we're saved, because like we have that joy where we just want to do good things. Mm-hmm. Just help people out.
Yeah, like when it comes to worship, I used to think, I'll leave it to the worship leader. But after kind of looking at what actually worship looks like, I realised that we need to kind of be the worship leaders of our own life, because worship is a choice. It's something we have to do intentionally, and so we have to lead ourselves and intentionally worship God, but not with just our singing, but in everything else that we do.
Yeah, that's one thing too about worship is what was it? I can't remember the verse. It's like talking about do all your work as unto the Lord. And I've always, not always, but I try to remember that at work, 'cause it's like in construction it can be a very rough environment. Yeah. And a lot of people I've worked for are very demanding and ungrateful. They'll remember every detail of something you did wrong or you messed up, but anything you did right, or, sometimes you'll get an attaboy, but usually it's, someone cursing at you, telling you, why did you do that, this and that. Mm-hmm. It's not very gratefulness, maybe. Yeah. But
not much affirmation.
Try and separate that and be like, all right, I'm not doing it for this guy, he's a jerk. I'm doing it as unto the Lord. Yeah. So you separate, the work. And sometimes you're like, well, he kind of, screwed me out of a break right here, so I'm not gonna work as hard for an hour or something, But you're like, no, I shouldn't do that, And then other people are, you try not to do what they're doing, you try and do what I'm gonna do. But
yeah, totally empathize. Like at my work, sometimes I'll do something, but someone else will get the credit, and it's really frustrating. But I don't want to speak up and say, oh, that was actually me. I deserve the credit. But I just have to remind myself it's not about me. It's for the young people ultimately. But I'm ultimately in that position because of God, and I'm doing it for God. So
sure, yeah. Good mentality to have. Life helps you have perspective on why we're doing things. We're only human. It's like, why would he even want us to be part of his family after all the times we fail?
Yeah. Like in verse 3, it kind of leapt out, and I highlighted it a lot because it starts off by saying, "Know the Lord is God. It is He who made us, and we are His." And I thought, why is it so important that we need to know that the Lord is God? And as I kind of thought about it, it's like the Lord is the one we serve, but you can serve the Lord of the land. It could be a landowner as a Lord. But our Lord that we serve is not just another ruling, governing body. He is actually God, and He's the God that created us. And in Genesis verse 1, when after God's created man and woman, He says they are very good. Not just good, but we're very good. And that was before we done anything. And so He looked at us, you know what, you're very good. I'm really pleased with you, before we actually did anything.
Yeah. It's kind of, what's it called? So there's this thing in construction where you're admiring your work or whatever. So you're just kind of sitting back and you're like, yeah, you're looking at it like, I did that. It looks good. It's kind of what I picture God being like. He's like, yeah, that's very good. I like that.
Yeah. I've done a great job there.
Did a great job. Kind of patting himself on the back, like,
yeah.
like that's cool. No one could build that. I mean, our bodies are so complex. It's like, wow.
Yeah, like I would agree. I think he's done a great job.
Especially on us two, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm great.
I mean, very good. Very good.
But having said that, it's like if we were having this conversation a couple of years ago, I wouldn't be able to agree with that point, and I wouldn't be able to say, that I am great. But it's because of a relationship with God, seeing my value in God, and knowing that He knows what He's talking about, and I can trust Him. So if He says that I'm good, I must be good.
Yeah, it's true.
I was having a conversation with one of the girls that I work with. In fact, you might remember her, Ali.
Yeah, I think
Ali.
For Ali.
Yeah. So I was speaking to Ali, and we were speaking to someone else as well, and we were talking about what it'll be like when we get into heaven. And she said, I hope that when we go to heaven, we don't remember our past lives and we don't remember our sin, because I just want to start new. And I was on the other side, and I said, well, I hope that we do, because why else do we worship God?
Sure.
And she said, simply because He is worthy. We don't worship Him because what He's done for us. We worship because He is who He is. And I couldn't really get my head around that, because I wanted to remember why I was grateful.
Yeah.
But then I had to kind of read through the Bible and correct myself, because if I was honest, that's quite a selfish point of view on my behalf. Like, God's not, He's done more than just save me from my sin. although that's a pretty big thing, he's done more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed here in verse 5 was, for the Lord, or for, you could use the word because the Lord is good and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. And as I was reading that, God kind of says to me, you know, this is why you worship me, because I am good, and because I am faithful, and because my love endures forever. And not just because he showed me grace and he done something for me, you know, because love isn't transactional. It's unconditional. And this was like a revelation for me, that he is good, as in he's not just, you know, he's good, he's great, yeah, well done. He's like, he's
sovereign. Like his justice isn't tainted by like human understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the very standard of morality for me.
Right.
Like,
yeah, he is the standard for morality. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And like when you look at the word good throughout the Bible, it's always something that's beneficial. It's not just something that someone feels positively about. It's something that has benefited the nation or the world or something, you know.
Right.
And like, because God is good, he's something that is beneficial, you know.
Yeah. He is the source of life. It's like, it's where everything comes from.
Yeah. So I really loved in this one because it was just that last line at the end was such revelation for me, and I think it will change how I worship, either corporately or just in my day-to-day life. I think that's going to change. Yeah,
I guess it does kind of shape your whole outlook on life when you realize that he's good. Nothing's out of his control. Just because he allows things to happen doesn't mean it's not within his control. And it doesn't make sense a lot of times when you know, people ask, why is there suffering in the world if God is so good, this and that? And well, sinful entered the world, and you know, he allows things to happen, but he's still good and still sits on the throne and still has a plan. So.
Yeah. It's like that saying that light will always cast a shadow. You know, there's not much you can do about it. Where there's good, there's going to be evil.
Right.
But it's how we choose to deal with that as individuals. So, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you joining me and giving up your time. It's really nice to see you.
Yeah, it was great to see you. And yeah, well,
excellent.
Cheers, mate.